In this lecture, I will talk about some methods that we can use for solving unsteady problems using the computational approach. Now, a major difference between space and time coordinates is that if you apply a force at the given location, that force may influence the flow anywhere else in elliptic problems, but forcing at a given time instant will only affect the flow in the future. So there is no backward influence in unsteady flow problems. Moreover, unsteady flows are therefore, because of this reason, they are parabolic in time, and essentially all solution methods that we will talk about will be time advancing methods and what we call as a step-by-step marching algorithm. So we will be discussing the step-by-step marching algorithms in this lecture. Now there are different methods for initial value problems, and the initial value problem that I'm going to pose will look something like this. We are supposed to evaluate the evolution of function phi, which is a function of t only for now, where the derivative of phi is some function of t and phi itself. And to start the calculation process, the initial condition is given. So phi at some time t naught is given as phi naught. So how do we go about calculating phi or the evolution of phi with time? So the first class of methods that I would talk about is what are called as two-level methods. And these two-level methods for solving such ODEs or initial value problems in ODEs, there are different ways of starting this calculation. In a discrete sense, what we will do is we will find the function phi at a short time interval delta t after the initial point, and then we'll keep updating it after every time increment of delta t. So the simplest way to understand this is if I integrate my equation which gives the evolution of function phi. So if we integrate, we can write that we'll do the integration between an interval which would be from tn to tn plus delta t, where this tn plus delta t I can say is, let's say, the time instant tn plus 1. So we'll write integral d phi dt dt, where time goes from tn to tn plus 1, would be integral of f t phi t dt tn to tn plus 1. Now the left hand side can be simplified, and we can write this as the integral would be phi at tn plus 1 minus phi at tn, and I'm going to use a shorthand notation. So I will say this is phi n plus 1 minus phi at n, where in the shorthand notation the subscripts would refer to the time instant or the time step. So now we have to figure out if at some instant I know the value of phi, I need to use this integral to calculate the value of phi at the next time instant. So what we look at would be approximate quadratures for this integral. Okay, so this is by the way, this is the exact solution. What we have done so far is the exact solution, but now we need to look at approximations for this integral. So the different approximations or different quadratures that we will encounter. So let's take the first quadrature, which would be that I can approximate the integral f t phi t dt between tn to tn plus delta t as function evaluated at time tn with value phi n into delta t. So this would mean that phi n plus 1 could be written as phi n plus f tn phi n delta t. Now physically what we're doing is we're saying that we evaluate the derivative of the function phi at the last known value and then use it to approximate the new value. So this method is what is called as the explicit or forward Euler method. It's called explicit because the right hand side, which is the integrand, is actually independent of any values at time tn plus 1. And so just knowing the values of the function at time tn, so knowing value phi n and tn, I can evaluate what would be phi n plus 1. So this is an explicit method in that sense. Okay, and remember this calculates the integrand from the initial point, which is the integration point. Now the second approach can be if I use or approximate function f t phi t dt between tn and tn plus delta t in terms of the function at the final point or at the end point. So if I could write this as function f tn plus 1 phi n plus 1 tn plus, or rather tn plus 1 phi n plus 1 into delta t. Now this way I can now write that phi n plus 1 would be phi n plus f tn plus 1 phi n plus 1 delta t, and this is what we call as the implicit or backward Euler method. It's implicit now because to calculate phi n plus 1 I have an equation which itself depends on phi n plus 1 and which may not be a simple equation where I could somehow rearrange to get phi n plus 1 on one side altogether. So it's an implicit solution, or it's an implicit proposal to solve this equation. Now before I comment on how easy or difficult these techniques are, let me also take two other options. The third option is that I could use the midpoint on the interval to calculate the derivative. So what it means is, if I use midpoint of the interval, remember the midpoint will be at time t n plus half. So what we can do is we can write phi n plus 1 to be phi n plus f, so time tn plus half, function calculated at tn plus half into delta t. Now this is what we will call as the midpoint rule, and it is the basis for a very famous method which is called as the leapfrog method. The last method will be to use some kind of a straight line interpolation, let's say between the initial and final points of the integral. So we can write phi n plus 1 to be phi n plus, let's say, half of f tn phi n plus f tn plus 1 phi n plus 1 delta t. This is called as a trapezoidal rule, which essentially is approximating the slope or approximating the derivative in the using the endpoints, and is the basis for the Crank-Nicholson method. So let me show you the geometric interpretation of these four techniques or these four proposals. Let's say our actual function f has some variation like that, and we are dealing with a short interval. So let me put the interval details here. Let's say this is point tn, and we have a point tn plus 1 which is equal to tn plus delta t, and then we have tn plus half in the middle. So let's just mark down that the value of this function at these three locations are, say, these. So remember, this is the exact function f. Now geometrically, what are we doing in these four techniques? So let me choose, first of all, what does the forward Euler do? The forward Euler is essentially saying that when we integrate, remember we are integrating the area under this curve. So what forward Euler is saying is that when we integrate, we use this value at Tn and take that value or the area under, if I put that line all across, then it's actually approximating the area under this rectangle as the integrand. So this is the forward Euler approach. Now what does the backward Euler do? Now the backward Euler is saying that you use the value of the integrand at Tn plus 1 and use that to calculate the area under the curve. So let me show that by a hatching of this type. So this is the approximation given by the backward Euler approach. Now what about the midpoint rule? The midpoint rule is now saying that we would calculate the slope on the basis of the midpoint on this interval, which is this point, and so now we take that value and calculate what is the area under that rectangle. So the midpoint rule will actually give me something like the area under this rectangle. Finally, what is the trapezoidal rule doing? It is approximating the overall area by drawing a linear relationship between the end points. So if I can draw a line there, let me draw a dotted line or a dashed line. So it says that use this line as the area, or the line under which the area under which is the approximation for the integral of the actual curve. So what we will have is, under this trapezoidal rule, we will have this area which will get counted. So this is the trapezoidal rule. So geometrically, this is the interpretation of these techniques. Now a few things that I should say them very clearly here. First of all, why are these methods called as two-level methods? Now these methods are called two-level methods because all of these methods, if you see carefully, all of them involve the value of the functions at only two time instants. So either it's time instant Tn or it would be time instant Tn plus 1. Okay. So the function evaluation, or the value of the unknown phi, is only being evaluated at Tn plus 1 or Tn. It is not being evaluated at any other time instant. The few issues with each of these methods are as follows. So the first issue is that except Euler, the forward Euler I should say, all methods belong to a class of implicit methods. And I'm saying this because the right hand side cannot be calculated without further approximation or iterations. So there is no direct solution without further, you can say, approximations or iterations. Second thing is, all these methods produce good solutions if delta t is small. However, it is important to analyze the behavior of a method when step size is large to understand stability. It's important that we understand that stability is very strongly dependent on the step size, and of course we cannot keep making delta t as small as possible because that is not ideal in terms of computational cost. The last thing is, in terms of accuracy, the explicit Euler method is actually first order accurate. Euler is first order accurate, which means that the error is order delta t, while the trapezoidal and the midpoint rules, the midpoint methods, have an accuracy of order delta t square. Now moving on, so we've looked at these specific category of methods which we called as the two-level methods. Now these two-level methods, as I discussed, there are two types, explicit and implicit. Explicit are definitely easy to program but can be unstable if the time step is large. On the other hand, these implicit methods that I discussed, they require iterative solution very often, and even though they may actually have a large delta t, or we have the liberty of taking a large time step, these require more computer memory and time per step, and of course they are also stable inherently. Now there is a second category of methods that can also be used to solve these kinds of initial value problems. These methods are called as predictor corrector methods, and these combine the best of the two methods, which are the explicit and implicit methods. So the predictor corrector method, in the first step in this, which is called as the predictor step. So in the predictor step, what is done is that we sort of predict an intermediate value of phi n plus 1, which could be written as phi n plus f at Tn comma phi n delta t, and this is not the final value but a value that we use to make the first estimate of phi n plus 1. Now the second step in this method, which is what is the correction or the corrector step, is where we use this predicted value to make a correction by using the trapezoidal rule. So we'll use the trapezoidal rule, and we'll use phi n plus 1 star to compute the derivative now. So we'll write phi n plus 1 to be phi n plus half of the derivative evaluated at time Tn with value of the function phi n plus f at Tn plus 1 comma phi n plus 1 star, which is the predicted value, into delta t. So that becomes the corrector step. Now the advantage is this is a second order method. So this is a second order method. However, this method is not very stable. So this method has a stability which is similar to the forward Euler method. Now if you want to get higher order approximation for our solution, we will need to have information at more than 2 points. So far we have looked at information at Tn plus 1 and Tn. Now there are other class of methods where we can use more data points. So we can use additional data points. That could be one way of improving the accuracy of the method, or there could be, we could create points between Tn and Tn plus 1 where we could do our derivative evaluations. The first class where we create additional data points, and these are data points which have already been computed in the past, these methods are called as multi-point methods, and creating more points within Tn and Tn plus 1, these will be called in general as Range-Katta methods. So let me first explain what I mean by the multi-point methods, and then I will explain what are the Range-Katta methods. So let's start with the third category of methods, which I am calling as the multi-point methods. Now the best known multi-point method is what is called as the Adams method, and it's obtained, the principle is very simple, it's obtained by fitting a polynomial to the derivatives at a number of points. So we obtain a polynomial, or we obtain the function evaluation by fitting a polynomial to the derivatives. The derivatives here are the function f at a number of points. So to explain to you what this polynomial would look like, so let's say we fit a Lagrange polynomial. Let's say we compute derivative at f t n minus m, where the value is phi n minus m. Then we have function at f t n minus m. The next point would be f t n minus m plus 1, where the function is, let's say, t phi n minus m plus 1, and we do all these evaluations until we reach f t n phi n. So we use this to calculate the integral f t phi t dt between tn and tn plus 1. Then what we would obtain using this approach, what we would obtain would be an explicit method of order m plus 1. So we have taken n points, or rather m points, we have taken m points behind tn phi n. By taking those m points, I am going to create an order of, or a method of order m plus 1, and that's going to be an explicit method. This approach is what is called as the, or this way of setting up this this method is what is called as Adam-Bashforth method, which is, and it's a very popular method in computational fluid dynamics. So it's easy to see that the first order method will be explicit Euler. First order method would mean that we take 0 points, that means we only evaluate the integral based on this data point, okay, because m will be 0. But if we take, let's say, as a starting point, let me say I want so let me write this down first. The first order accurate method would just be the explicit Euler. A second order accurate method, would require us to calculate data points, or to calculate the derivative at 2 points phi. So I would say that would be f tn phi n and f t n minus 1 phi n minus 1. And if you derive using Lagrange polynomial, which is quite easy to do, although I'm skipping it here, you can actually work out this quite easily. What you should get is that phi n plus 1 will come out to be phi n plus delta t by 2 into 3 times f tn phi n minus f tn minus 1 phi n minus 1. So I hope you can see that this is actually an explicit method, because the data evaluation or the derivative evaluation is being done at data points which are already stored in the memory, and when using those we are going to calculate the function value at the next time step. Similarly, a third order method will be one which would look like phi n plus 1. Now third order method would mean that we need to take 2 data points behind tn. So we'll have phi n plus 1 to be phi n plus delta t by 12. Now the coefficients would be 23 f tn phi n minus 16 f tn minus 1 phi n minus 1 plus 5 f tn minus 2 phi n minus 2. So now we have a third order method because we have taken 2 points behind this, the current time instant, which is tn. Now the advantages of using multi-point methods are that, first of all, these are quite easy to construct. for any order. The second advantage comes in because they are easy to program. These are explicit methods, remember. So all you need are functional data points from the past. And the third aspect is that the derivative needs to be calculated only once at each time step. So derivative, which is function f, needs to be calculated only once at each time step, and it can be stored for subsequent analysis. So once we have, for example, once we are at tn minus 2, we can store this function value, and then when we go to tn minus 1, we can store this value, and then at tn we can again store this value, and then we can just, these values can be taken forward. So that way it's not very expensive to implement this method. But there are also disadvantages. So the easiest disadvantage to notice is that this method is not self-starting if you are trying to implement a higher order method. If you have a first order method, then you can actually start with the initial condition. Remember, when you have explicit Euler, you can start with the initial condition and you can keep marching in time. But if you're doing a second order method or a third order method, then you need data points when you are starting the calculation process, and this data at tn minus 2 and tn minus 1 or at tn minus 1 may not be available. So this method cannot be started. So it cannot be started using only data at the initial point, and some data from some prior points is also required. Now the remedy to this problem is that when we have only an initial condition given, we can use small time steps initially and develop some data points. So small time steps would ensure that even though you are using explicit Euler, the accuracy can be improved by taking a very small time step. So we can start with a small time step and a lower order method, and we can slowly increase the order, which would mean that at some point when you have enough data points, you can slowly increase the order as more data becomes available. The other disadvantage of these methods is that they can produce, or they are known to produce, non-physical solutions. So that is a problem that these methods are known to exhibit. Now the last category of methods that I want to discuss today in this lecture are the Runge-Kutta methods, and there are different Runge-Kutta methods depending on the accuracy you desire. The first one and the most basic one is a second order Runge-Kutta method, which I am going to denote as RK, and this consists of 2 steps. Now remember, this is a method in which we are going to create more data within the time interval of tn and tn plus 1. So the first step of creating data is that we will do a half step prediction. The half step prediction is based on explicit Euler method, and what it looks like is that we can say phi n plus half star is phi n plus delta t by 2 f tn phi n. So as you can see, what I've done here is that using the derivative at the given time step, which is tn. So once we have f, we only make a half delta t improvement. So we sort of predict the value at the half step. The second point, or the second step of this method, is to do a midpoint corrector. So we'll do a midpoint rule corrector, which makes a method really second order accurate. And what it does is, we now write that the phi n plus 1, the value that we predict at phi n plus 1 would be phi n plus delta t into f of t n plus half at phi n plus half star. So as you can see, I have used basically the data at the integer time step to sort of predict the data at, or the slope in a way, or rather, in this case the function value at the intermediate location, and using that intermediate location value I then estimate the slope at that point, and that slope is then used to make the prediction for the integer time step. Now this method is easy to use and is self-starting, because if you are given the initial condition, you can easily make a midpoint prediction and then correct it. So this is quite an easy method to use that way. So this method is easy to use and is self-starting. Now let's look at a second variant, which is very popular in literature, which is the fourth order Runge-Kutta method. And in this case, we will do the derivative evaluations at 4 points. So let me show you what these 4 points are going to be. The first is an explicit Euler predictor. So we calculate the function value at a half time step based on the derivative at Tn. The second step is an implicit Euler corrector. So the second step is an implicit Euler corrector at time step Tn plus half. What it means is, I would write an intermediate value n plus half, let's say double star, to be phi n plus delta t by 2 f at Tn plus half phi n plus half star. So we correct the value. Now this is implicit corrector I am saying because we are sort of using the to get the corrected value, we are using data at the same time step, right? So this is Tn plus half, so that is why it's called as implicit Euler. The third step is a midpoint rule predictor. So now we are going to use a midpoint rule predictor for the full time step. So for the full step, what it means is, we can now say phi n plus 1, which is our sort of the predicted value at the next instant, would be phi n plus delta t. Now we will calculate the slope based on our corrected value at the half step. And finally, we do the last correction using Simpson's rule. So we'll call it a Simpson's rule corrector to yield fourth order accurate method. Now what it means is, we will now write the final value to be phi n plus delta t by 6 into derivative evaluations at different time steps. So we'll have f Tn phi n plus f Tn plus half phi n plus half star plus 2 times f Tn plus half phi n plus half double star plus f Tn plus 1 phi n plus 1 star. So using the 4 function evaluations or 4 derivative evaluations, we then make the final prediction for the next time step. Now, as I showed you that there are 4 evaluations, the disadvantage of this method is that it requires n derivatives to be evaluated per time step, making this more expensive than the multi-point methods. But other than that, other than this disadvantage, we achieve fourth order accuracy with this Runge-Kutta method.